Welcome, everybody. My name is Michael MacDonnell. I'm the Program Director of the MSc in Business Analytics in the Smurfit School, University College Dublin. It's my pleasure to welcome you here today alongside my colleagues, Anne-Marie Connolly, who is the Program Manager for the MSc in Business Analytics, and Richard Murphy, who is our Admissions Manager for the Smurfit School. So the format today is we just have quite a short time, 20 minutes. So I'm going to run through a fairly short presentation. You're very welcome to add questions in the chat, and we will try to address those as we go along, but we'll leave plenty of time at the end to take any questions. Okay, so first of all, just to talk about the MSc in Business Analytics and what it is. So I think it's fair to say that for a business school, this is quite a technical degree, and we probably would consider this one of the most technical degrees offered by the Smurfit School. So what it's about and who it suits are what I want to communicate. So first of all, what is business analytics? Well, it's about decision making, and this generally means a combination of mathematical techniques and using information technology. So we're using computers with large amounts of data to aid in good decision making in business. So we have quite a number of practical skills. So how to work with data, so how to gather good data, interpret it and model it, and then use good data and good technique and help us to make good decisions. There's obviously a business aspect to this. So while the foundation of the program really and what you would carry through into a business analytics career is a very strong grounding in quantitative techniques and mathematical techniques, and also computing techniques, so how to work with the latest technology. And on top of that, then a lot of our graduates would end up in business-facing roles. Most of our graduates will end up in business-facing roles. So that means dealing with companies and different aspects of businesses. So dealing with different disciplines and companies in order to help them to avail of business analytics, because one thing that we experience is that this is very much an expert program. So the people who graduate from this program will have skills that are beyond those that would be common in an organization. So you'll be bringing a level of expertise that you need to share with people. So how do you do that? How do you communicate the potential of business analytics to people who are not particularly expert in that area? So we're dealing with management and different people within companies and clients and suppliers and so on. We have to communicate, because somebody who's very skilled in business, and we emphasize very much working in groups, which can be a change for people. So people initially might find this uncomfortable, but they become very successful working in groups. And of course, this is really, really important to any career, really. And finally, then we will look at the research. So what's happening? So how is business analytics progressing? And of course, we're immersed in applications of analytics in our everyday lives. So we're all very familiar with the Google and YouTube algorithms that push things in our direction based on what they think our behavior is online. So that type of analytics is something that we're all encountering every day. So who should be interested in doing this program? So it's a mixture of technology and business. It's very important. As I said, it's a very technical program, and yet we're a business school. So we need people to remember that what we're doing is for business benefit always. We see typically graduates from business programs, although they surprisingly are in the minority. So the majority of people we see coming into our programs have strong backgrounds in engineering or science. So they tend to have quite quantitative background. So if you know you're good with numbers and you're analytical in that regard, you're good with data and good with numbers, and that makes you a suitable candidate. An ability to solve problems. So we're always thinking about the business objective of any analytical work that we're doing, and you really need a strong programming and mathematical background. So for anybody thinking about doing the program who doesn't have a clear qualification in programming or statistics, I would say those are the two areas that, while you may be a suitable candidate, if you feel you're a little bit short on either programming or statistics, those would be the two areas that we would recommend people would practice in before beginning the program. So our graduates, good news is our graduates are getting very, very good jobs, and they're enjoying very successful careers. And I see this every day because recent graduates are coming back to me telling me that they're joining companies and looking for the immediate evidence I have is that people look for references from me. And so I hear that they are getting jobs in the companies that are mentioned here, all of whom have a lot of graduates from the Smurfit School in them. So they're very, the qualifications are very well recognized by major employers. But as well as consulting and technology, business analytics obviously is becoming huge in areas like banking, as an example. The program structure is fairly simple. You can read it on the website. Important to mention that in just in the past year, because of the huge popularity of the program, we're now running the program twice, meaning that if you're in a class size of or group of say over 100, that group is divided in two for everything. So all lectures and tutorials and so on are delivered in smaller groups. So that's proof that the program is very popular, but we're keen to maintain the quality of the experience that you get in a graduate business school. And for that reason, we have decided to repeat everything. So there are two offerings of all lectures. It is a full-time program. You're expected to attend full-time and be available during working hours, Monday to Friday. There are three terms, so the program runs for a full year. So it runs from the beginning of September to the end of the following August. 3 terms have equal values. So the first term beginning in September is 4 modules. Second term in January is 4 modules. The summer term, beginning in May, is a little bit different because you do a capstone, which is an applied research project together with 2 optional modules. Something I like to mention and reflect on very briefly is this spectrum of skills. So what we can just as a shorthand call hard and soft skills, which we think of being in slightly opposite directions, but all of these things are important and all of them are necessary. So what we could call hard skills at the extreme end of the spectrum, something like optimization. So this means using mathematical models to come up with a best answer to some very well-defined problem. The other end of the spectrum, something like marketing, which we think of as very much a personal type of skill. All of these skills need to exist, and you will naturally find yourself somewhere on this spectrum. So it's nice to reflect just where do I see myself on this spectrum and where would I like to be on this spectrum? And I ask students to look at this at the beginning and the end of the program to see how much have they filled in gaps, because nobody can be specialized in one particular thing. And we will see people typically during during their progression through the MSc, they will tend to recognize more and more the importance of soft skills, but being based on a good foundation of hard skills. So we try to address all of these areas, and don't worry about the amount of detail in here. It's just to give an example, and it's just to think about there are many different things going on that we all need to try to develop. So some of us from a very mathematical background might think something like marketing is not something that we are suitable, but people will evolve into these different skill sets. I introduced Anne-Marie. I also introduced myself, obviously, and Richard from Smurfit Admissions. So that's a really, really quick overview of the MSc in Business Analytics. I'm conscious that we have a short session today, so I wanted to leave as much time as possible for questions. So I'll invite Richard and Anne-Marie to join me then, and maybe invite anybody to feel free to ask questions. And Richard, will I hand over to you first?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks for the overview. I hope everyone watching found that quite useful. Obviously, I would say if you have any questions, just put them into the Q&A box. I've been busy replying to a good few questions that are coming in. Some are a little bit sort of specific, so I might not sort of read those ones out. But I'm just going to go through to have a look at some more. I think some of the questions that are coming in more relation to admissions here that are can you apply for multiple programs? Yes is the answer. You can, but obviously just one thing I would say is just to not apply for maybe more than 1 or 2, because it kind of shows us as admissions managers that maybe you don't know exactly what course you want to do. And that is something that we really look for in our applicants to make sure they're very motivated for the course that they are applying for. There are scholarships. The full list of scholarships are available on our website under the scholarships tab. So each will have a slightly different criteria as well. So please do refer to the website and the particular criteria that is needed, and also the eligibility. But I will say one thing on scholarships, which is that do not rely on achieving a scholarship in order to fund your studies and the cost of living in Dublin, because they are very competitive. And also they are not awarded until the summer, at which point you would have to have committed to the school as well. So our scholarships are set up in a slightly different way to reward students that are coming to us rather than to try to get new students in, if that makes sense. Anne-Marie, is there any questions that you might have seen there that you might want to take?
Apologies, I was muted there. There's just one that maybe Michael might be able to help with just at the end. Just a student wondering if we could shed some light on what opportunities there are for students to work with companies as part of the Capstone project, Michael.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. And thank you for the question, RS. So, and this ties in with another one that somebody asked about placements or internships. Now, we work in terms of the Capstone projects, we work very closely with a large range of excellent organizations. They're not called placements or internships because they're research projects. So, but we work very closely with organizations. And what we do every year around January each year is we gather proposals from a very wide range of companies. And they give us, we have to agree with them what is suitable as a Capstone project. So what has a real depth and value as a research project. So those projects are very applied. They're typically done with companies. Sometimes they're working with faculty on research questions. But I would say that those are a fantastic way to engage with companies, and companies that work with us in Capstones are typically quite serious about hiring the people that they work with. So we see a huge conversion from students collaborating on Capstone projects to going to work with companies. So this is really an excellent way to, if you like, it's an extended interview and it's kind of an internship. So if you're successful in working with a big company like Microsoft or Deloitte, for example, there's a really strong chance that you would gain employment with them. And again, their motivation for being involved in the Capstone projects is they have a huge need for the graduates from this program. So it creates a very close link with industry.
Thanks, Michael. I just see another question there. How many weekly classes does Business Analytics Part-Time have? So I could probably answer that one. So the Part-Time Business Analytics program, students do 2 modules in each trimester. So, and each module would have approximately 3 hours of lectures a week. Some of the modules may also have tutorials attached to them. So you would be looking at approximately 6 to 7 hours maybe of actual lectures and tutorials a week as a part-time student.
I just add, Emery, that just to be clear that the part-time, somebody taking the program part-time is taking the full-time program, exactly the same lectures and modules, but over an extended period. So they're sitting in class with full-time students.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could just, Richard, unless you want to stop me, just one other student had a question in relation to experience and what kind of, I know you answered, but I'd just like to comment that we do not require you to have work experience on the program, but we typically see that people in many cases will have a couple of years relevant work experience, which we like to see. So this is very beneficial for everybody. Typically also we see part-time students are obviously in relevant jobs and tend to come to us with quite a few years of experience. So it's very beneficial to the class to have a mixture of recent graduates and people with experience, even though it's not a requirement. But typically we will find there are quite a few people with some experience in the class, and this experience is enriching to everybody's experience, actually. So if you're a recent graduate doing a lot of group work with people who maybe 1 or 2 people in a group have relevant work experience, we find that works really well, actually, bringing everybody together working on projects.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Michael, actually, because we find generally across the school, we have 2 types of cohorts. We've got the first cohort that kind of comes direct from university. Then you have a second cohort that can be anything from maybe 3 to sort of even 10 years out and plus. But generally speaking, those are kind of ones who are coming back to us with a little bit of experience. Maybe they haven't achieved a master's straight away, or that they're looking to maybe switch careers slightly. And on that note, with regards to eligibility, we actually have a lot of people in our classes. It's not fair to say, Michael, I mean, you're probably best placed to comment on that, but in relation to admissions, we have people coming from engineering backgrounds, from business backgrounds, obviously from IT and programming and computer science backgrounds. I think one of the key things that we look for in admissions is that you kind of have an analytical and quantitative brain, obviously, because as Michael already mentioned, it's a heavy sort of processing kind of course. So it's something that we try to look for, but it's not specific to any one sort of background. I hope that gives kind of a little bit of information. A lot of sort of other admissions questions, Michael, but I'll just maybe quickly kind of run through some of the general questions. I think that if I can sum them up, there's a sort of a few questions around deadlines. There is no deadline, and that's important. The way that we operate admissions is on a first come, first served basis. So business analytics is by far one of our most popular courses here. We get a lot of international students and our students who want to do this program. So my strong advice to you is, if you haven't applied for business analytics already, you should definitely get an application in as soon as possible. And it is, as I mentioned, done on a first come, first serve. So we have found that, I think actually last year, we closed business analytics very close to around Christmas time. I think it was just after Christmas. So please just keep that in mind. Others have made a comment on how long the process might take once you've submitted your application. Generally speaking, it's 2 to 3 weeks for an answer. But again, it varies from year to year based on the amount of applications that come in. But it also varies on where you're applying from. So for example, if you're applying from India, a lot of people apply through an agent, and this process then takes even longer because there are other agent elements that they have to fulfill too. So what I would say is just please be patient. We will get back to you as soon as we can. And at any stage, you can look at your status update on your portal where you made your application. So you'll see your current status there, and by all means, you can email us at smurfit.admissions@ucd.ie with your application number, and we'll get back to you as well. I think we might have answered that one already, have you, slightly, with regards to the opportunity for students to work with. I think you kind of covered that off at the Capstone. Is there anything else, Anne-Marie, that you might see more program related?
So just maybe one question there. Do we require strong programming background for the program?
Do you want to take that one, Michael?
Sure. Thanks, Henry. No, I would say that, as I mentioned in the very short presentation, that if you don't have a specific programming qualification, I would undertake a course or two by yourself before you join the course. So we could accept you on the strength of your background. So if you have a good quantitative background, then you could be offered a place in the program. If you haven't received a program qualification, I would say get one. So do something, even if it's a fairly short online course on Python, for example. I would think the aptitude, and you will know yourself, if you have a good mind for that kind of thing, so problem solving and analytical skills, we will teach you the programming that you need. But I would really encourage you to undertake a programming qualification before you start the program, because it just obviously brings you a little bit up the learning curve. But we will teach programming from start to finish, because it's obviously quite an in-depth field. So, but no, I would say it's not so much that you need a strong experience of programming, but I would say that you know that you have a suitable skill set for becoming good at programming.
Right. Maybe one last quick question before I pass it back to Michael, just to wrap up. Just is the question is the part-time course going to be on campus, or is it optional to watch the classes online? I might just jump in, and please feel free as well. At the moment, all classes are in person and face-to-face, which is great to be back on campus and have that. So maybe Anne-Marie or Michael, if you want to add anything else to part-time class.
Yeah, so as Michael had mentioned, that the part-time students attend classes a long time with the full-time students. So, but obviously it's spread out over 2 years. But at the moment, we're currently all back on campus, which is fantastic, and lectures are taking place face-to-face. So we envisage that will go forward into next year, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks, Emery. Thanks, Richard. And maybe just a quick comment on that. Actually, we had a debate last summer in the middle of lockdown about offering a purely online program, and we decided that we would not be able to do it to the standard that would be equivalent to our traditional program, and And in terms of our ability to deliver and have resources, we actually decided that we would offer to we would run every lecture twice for the class because it has got bigger. And so we thought very hard about offering an online program because there's obviously, from our point of view, a big interest out there, but we decided that we couldn't really give the same quality of experience. So we're happy to be back on campus now, notwithstanding any further, health related stipulations that may arise in the future. But no, we would really essentially require part-time students to attend as normal. So, if for some reason there's a health issue, we would try to provide online access as a backup, not as the preferred way of giving the program, to be honest. So could I maybe just make one or two disclosing remarks? And the one thing I would say, again, programming and so on, don't worry about not having the right experience when it comes to programming, because what we're looking for is for people who have the potential to be good at that type of thing. Another thing that I'd really urge people to consider is, and I think Richard mentioned, don't rely on a scholarship to undertake the program. So even though there's large financial commitment, the reward is very, very clear. So people who are able to find a way to pay not only for the program, but to live in Dublin for a year or 2 years in the part-time case, they get very, very good outcomes, and they're very happy within a year of completing the program that they get a job that rewards their investments. So, scholarship opportunities obviously are there, but they're quite limited. They're not that many scholarship opportunities available. And I think it's just frustrating if you're banking on having a scholarship to get into the program. It's probably not it's a very risky strategy. And I would just encourage you, if at all possible, that yes, of course, we recognize that it's a very serious financial commitment for anybody to undertake this program, but the career outcomes and progression we see are really, really strong, and certainly I would say worthwhile. So, we can quote 100% employment after 6 months. And also somebody I saw asked a question about moving towards managerial type roles from the program, and absolutely yes. So within a few years, we would see people moving from narrow technical roles into managing teams and rising up through the hierarchy of organizations. And so that's a very typical career trajectory for graduates. And again, it's a master's program from a business school, so this puts you at a higher level within an organization. So unless anybody has any final questions, I think we're actually a little bit over time, so we're going to be shut down by our colleagues. So it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I hope we've addressed your questions. You have our contact information if there's anything more we can do to help to inform you. And again, thank you very much. Pleasure talking to you today, and I look forward to meeting some of you in person, hopefully next September. Okay, and thanks, Richard and Anne-Marie, for joining us today.